The Alien Council had never seen a sensor reading this dangerous. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from and subscribe for more HFY stories. Commander Thexerl stood on the bridge of the Valorian Ascendant, his segmented carapace gleaming under the cold light of the tactical displays. Around him, the pride of the Valorian Empire's Third Fleet hung in perfect formation. 214 warships, their weapons primed, their shields humming with barely contained energy. Below them, spinning slowly in the light of its yellow star, was the human colony world of Kepler 442. "Status," Thexerl commanded, his mandibles clicking with satisfaction. "Orbital blockade is complete, Commander," his tactical officer reported, her voice steady with confidence. "All planetary defense platforms have been mapped. Our energy signatures are minimal. No military vessels detected in system." Thexerl allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The humans were a recent addition to the galactic community, barely a century since first contact, isolated on the galactic rim, their territory small and poorly defended. The Valorian Empire had been expanding for 3,000 years. This would be simple. "Population?" he asked. "Approximately 400,000 colonists," the sensor officer replied. "Agricultural settlement with light industrial capacity. No significant military infrastructure. They appear defenseless, Commander." "Perfect." The colony sat at the junction of three strategical trade routes the Empire needed. The humans had refused to sell. Now they would simply take it. "Open a channel to the colony's government center," Thexerl ordered. The view screen flickered and a human appeared. Female, by their strange binary designation, with dark skin and calm eyes that seemed to assess him with disturbing clarity. She wore simple civilian clothing. No uniform, no indicators of military rank. "I am Commander Thexerl of the Valorian Empire," he announced, his translator rendering his words into the crude human language. "You are surrounded. Your world is indefensible. You have 1 standard hour to surrender unconditionally, or we will take this colony by force. Choose wisely." The human woman didn't flinch, didn't pale, didn't show any of the fear responses Thexerl had been briefed to expect. "Governor Chen," she said simply, her voice steady. "And no." Thexerl's mandibles spread in confusion. "You refuse?" "We refuse." Her eyes hadn't left his. "You have made a grave mistake, Commander. I suggest you withdraw your fleet while you still can." A ripple of incredulous chittering spread across the bridge. His tactical officer's carapace flushed with amusement. "You have no fleet," Thexerl said slowly, as if speaking to a child. "You have no orbital defenses worth the name. You are 400,000 civilians against the might of the Valorian Third Fleet. What possible leverage do you believe you possess?" Governor Chen leaned forward slightly. "The leverage of not being alone, Commander. You should leave. Now." "Your nearest human worlds are weeks away at maximum velocity," Thexerl countered. "Though even if you transmitted a distress call the moment we entered the system, which you did, any response would arrive far too late." He gestured to his tactical display. "You have 59 minutes remaining. Message received," the governor said quietly. "Help is coming." The transmission ended. For a moment, silence dominated the bridge. Then his officers erupted in amused clicks and whistles. The human's bravado was almost charming in its futility. "Maintain blockade positions," Thexerl ordered. "Monitor all communications. If they're foolish enough to resist, we'll make an example that will ensure the other human colonies cooperate." His tactical officer nodded, still amused. "Commander, even if the humans had a response fleet, which intelligence suggests they don't, our projections show minimum arrival time of 17 days. They're isolated, poorly defended, and—" "Commander!" The sensor officer's voice cut through the confidence like a blade through flesh. "I'm detecting something." Thexerl turned. Clarify. Spatial distortions. Edge of the system. They're getting stronger. The sensor officer's hands moved frantically across her console. These readings don't make sense. It's like the fabric of space is tearing. A natural phenomenon, Thexrel suggested, though unease crept up his spine. No, sir, this is artificial, directed, and she looked up, her eyes wide. Commander, the humans sent their distress signal 47 minutes ago. 47 minutes. Impossible. Continue monitoring, Thexrel ordered, his voice harder now. All ships to combat readiness. The fleet shifted, weapons charging, shields reinforcing. But even as they moved, even as discipline overrode confusion, one thought dominated Thexrel's mind. Nothing could cross that much space in 47 minutes. Nothing they knew of. The sensors began to scream. The spatial distortions weren't dissipating. They were growing. "Report!" Thexrel barked, his mandibles clenched tight. "Multiple gravimetric anomalies." The sensor officer stammered, her voice cracking. "Quantum fluctuations across a massive area. Commander, the energy readings they're off the scale. Whatever's coming, it's big." Thexrel stared at the tactical display. The edge of the system was lighting up like a dying star, reality itself seeming to buckle and warp. His experience told him this was impossible. His instincts told him to run. "Get me fleet-wide analysis," he demanded. "I want to know what we're looking at." His science officer, an elder named Vorth, who had served in the Empire's research divisions for decades, was already hunched over his console. "Commander, these readings, they match no known propulsion system, not Valorian, not Krell, not even the ancient precursor signatures we've studied. This is something else entirely." "Then what is it?" Vorth looked up, his face plates pale. I believe they're creating localized tiers in space-time, artificial wormholes. But the energy requirements would be—" He stopped himself. "It should be impossible." The view screen flickered. Every ship in the fleet received the same transmission simultaneously. Governor Chen appeared again, her expression unchanged. "Commander Thexrel, I gave you the opportunity to leave. You chose to remain. What happens next is on you." "You're bluffing," Thexrel said, but his voice lacked conviction. "There's no way." "Message received. Help is coming," she repeated, and this time there was something in her eyes. Not fear, not anger, pity. "You have 2 minutes to begin your withdrawal. After that, I cannot guarantee your fleet's safety." The transmission ended again. "Sir, the distortions are stabilizing," the sensor officer shouted. "Something's emerging." The view screen switched to long-range visual. At the edge of the system, where moments before there had been empty space, reality split. It wasn't an explosion. It wasn't a tear. It was as if the universe simply opened, folding back on itself like a curtain being drawn aside. And through that impossible aperture, ships began to emerge. Thexrel had commanded fleets for 30 years. He had seen dreadnoughts, carriers, world breakers. He had witnessed the might of the Empire's greatest armadas. Nothing had prepared him for this. The first ship through was larger than his flagship. The second was larger than his first 3 vessels combined. The third was the size of a small moon. They came in perfect formation, their hulls a dark matte gray that seemed to swallow light itself. No decorative markings, no identifying colors, just smooth, angular efficiency and the cold promise of overwhelming force. "Count them," Thexrel whispered. His tactical officer's hands shook. 100, 200. "Commander, they're still coming through. 300, 400. The human fleet continued to pour through the quantum aperture like water through a dam. Battleships, carriers, cruisers, destroyers. And behind them the true monsters, Titan-class vessels that made his entire fleet look like toys in comparison. 512 ships, his tactical officer finally reported, her voice hollow. "Confirmed 512 human vessels. 37 of them are larger than anything in our database." Thexrel felt his confidence crumble like sand. 500 ships in 47 minutes. "Commander, their weapons are powering up," his sensor officer reported. "Energy signatures are, by the ancestors, I've never seen readings like this. Their primary weapons alone are outputting more power than our entire fleet combined." The quantum aperture collapsed, space sealing itself as if it had never been torn. The human fleet hung there in perfect silence, and a wall of gray death between the Valorian armada and any hope of escape. A new transmission came through, not from the colony, from the fleet. A human male appeared on the view screen, older, with gray in his hair and eyes like frozen nitrogen. He wore a dark uniform with minimal insignia, a few silver stars on his collar, nothing more. His face was carved from stone. "I am Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen," the human said, his voice quiet and precise. "You have surrounded a civilian colony of the Terran Federation. You have threatened 400,000 human lives. You have one opportunity to stand down. Power down your weapons, lower your shields, prepare to be boarded and detained." Thexrel felt his command staff watching him. The entire fleet was watching. The Empire was watching. "You expect us to surrender?" he managed. "Oh, we outnumber your colony world. You misunderstand," Admiral Chen interrupted, his tone unchanged. "I'm not negotiating with you regarding the colony. The colony was never in danger. I'm giving you the chance to survive the next 10 minutes. The Valorian Empire does not." 47 minutes, Chen continued as if Thexrel hadn't spoken. "That's how long it took my fleet to cross 800 light-years and arrive in this system. 47 minutes. We have rapid response fleets positioned throughout our territory, Commander. Every colony, every outpost, every research station. Touch one, and you touch all of them." Thexrel's mind reeled. 800 light-years, 47 minutes. The mathematics alone defied everything the Empire knew about physics. "This is your final warning," Chen said. "Stand. Down." Thexrel looked at his tactical display. 214 ships against 512. But numbers had meaning only when technology was comparable. And if these humans could cross 800 light-years in less than an hour— "Commander," his tactical officer whispered urgently, "I recommend we—" "No." Thexrel straightened. The Empire had never retreated. Never. 3,000 years of expansion, of conquest, of dominance. He would not be the first to break. "All ships, weapons free, target their lead vessels. Fire on my command." "Sir, I strongly advise—" "Fire." The Valorian Third Fleet opened fire. 214 warships unleashed hell itself. Plasma lances, kinetic rounds, missile swarms, energy beams that could crack planets. The void between the fleets lit up with enough firepower to sterilize a world. The human fleet's shields flickered. That was all. Not failed. Not strained. Flickered. Like someone had briefly passed a hand in front of a light source. Thexrel's mandibles went slack. "Again!" he roared. "Pour everything into their lead ship. Concentrate fire." The fleet obeyed. Every weapon, every system, everything they had hammered into a single human dreadnought. The space around it became a storm of destruction. The human ship's shields didn't even flicker this time. Admiral Chen's expression hadn't changed. "Your turn," he said quietly. The human fleet fired. The universe became light and thunder. The human fleet didn't volley, didn't concentrate fire. Each ship selected a target with mechanical precision and fired once. Thexrel watched his tactical display dissolve into chaos. Ship after ship winked from green to yellow to red in the span of heartbeats. Not destroyed, disabled. The human weapons punched through the Valorian shields as if they didn't exist, tore through armor plating like it was fabric, and surgically destroyed propulsion systems, weapons arrays, and power cores with terrifying accuracy. "Evasive maneuvers!" Thexral screamed. "All ships, scatter formation!" But there was nowhere to scatter to. The human fleet had positioned itself in a perfect sphere around the Valorian armada, every angle covered, every escape route sealed. And they were fast. Their ships moved with impossible agility, adjusting position faster than Valorian vessels could respond. "The Crimson Talon is down. Steadfast Honor reports total systems failure. Victory's edge is—" His tactical officer's voice broke. "Commander, we've lost 40 ships in 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Thexral's claws dug into his command chair. "Return fire. Keep—" "Sir, our weapons aren't penetrating their hulls," his weapons officer shouted. "Direct hits, 0 damage. It's like they're not even there." On the view screen, Thexral watched a human destroyer, barely a third the size of a Valorian battleship, absorb a direct plasma lance strike that should have vaporized it. The beam simply splashed across the hull plating like water on stone, dissipating harmlessly into space. "What are those ships made of?" Vorth breathed, his scientific composure shattered. "Our plasma burns at 12 million degrees. Their hull plating isn't even scorched." Another wave of human fire. At another 30, Valorian ships went dark, spinning helplessly in the void, their crews alive but powerless. The humans weren't killing them. They were dismantling the fleet piece by piece, with the calm efficiency of a surgeon removing a tumor. "Shields are failing," someone shouted. "Multiple hull breaches on deck 7 through 12. The Valorian ascendant shuddered as a human round, a physical projectile, of all things, tore through its shields and punched clean through the ship. Thexral was thrown from his chair as the deck bucked beneath him. Alarms screamed. Emergency lights flickered. "Damage report. Weapons offline. Propulsion at 30%. Shields collapsing." His tactical officer clutched her bleeding thorax. "Commander, they hit our ammunition stores, our reactor coolant lines. Well, and our communication relays in a single shot. They knew exactly where to aim." They knew. Of course they knew. These weren't lucky hits. The humans had scanned every ship in the fleet, mapped every system, identified every vulnerability. And now they were methodically destroying the Valorian Empire's pride without breaking stride. Thexral pulled himself upright and looked at the tactical display. 107 ships remained operational. 107 out of 214. The engagement had lasted less than 3 minutes. The human fleet hung there, weapons still charged, utterly untouched. Admiral Chen's face reappeared on the view screen. He looked tired, not exhausted from battle. He looked tired of this, of having to do this, of explaining to species after species that their arrogance had consequences. "Stand down," he said again. "This is your final warning." You're monsters," Thexral whispered. "Your technology, your weapons, are the result of necessity," Chen interrupted. "We're not conquerors, Commander. We're not an empire. We're a federation of worlds that learned very early in our history what happens when you're unprepared, when you're weak, when you can't protect your own." His eyes hardened. "We spent 2 centuries ensuring we would never be weak again." Thexral watched another dozen ships on his display go dark. The humans were still firing, still methodically dismantling what remained of his fleet. "You're slaughtering us." "No," Chen said quietly. "If we were slaughtering you, Commander, your ships would be debris fields, not disabled hulks. If we were slaughtering you, this engagement would have lasted 6 seconds, not 3 minutes. We're restraining ourselves." The words hit Thexral like a physical blow. Restraining. This overwhelming, impossible display of power was them holding back. "Why?" he managed. Why show mercy? Because unlike you, Chen said, we don't enjoy this. Because every species deserves a chance to learn. Because the galaxy doesn't need more empires. It needs civilizations that understand consequences. He leaned forward slightly. You came to take a world full of farmers, scientists, families, children, Commander. You came to conquer human children, and you're surprised that we responded with force? Thexrel had no answer. His entire career, his entire life, had been built on the certainty of Valorian superiority, 3,000 years of expansion. Here 3,000 years of dominance, gone in 3 minutes. But how? Vorth spoke up from his console, his scientific mind still trying to process what he was witnessing. Your propulsion, your weapons, your defenses, they shouldn't be possible. The energy requirements alone. We don't use fusion, Chen said simply. We don't use antimatter. We mastered quantum manipulation 70 years ago. We fold space. We convert quantum vacuum energy directly into thrust. Our shields don't block your weapons. They redirect them into parallel dimensional spaces. Your plasma never even touches our hulls. Silence. Absolute silence on the bridge. As for our weapons, Chen continued, kinetic rounds accelerated to 0.99 light speed using artificial gravity wells. Simple physics, Commander. Mass times velocity. Oh, your energy shields are designed to disperse energy. They were never designed to stop a solid object moving at relativistic speeds. Thexrel understood now. It wasn't just that humans were more advanced. They were operating on entirely different scientific principles. Fighting them with Valorian technology was like bringing spears to a starship battle. Remaining Valorian vessels, Chen announced, his voice carrying across every surviving ship's communications. You have 10 seconds to power down your weapons and shields. After that, we will interpret continued resistance as a hostile act, and we will respond accordingly. Thexrel looked around his ruined bridge, at his injured crew, at the tactical display showing the shattered remains of his once proud fleet, at the human armada that had barely expended a fraction of its capability. And he thought of the Empire, of the High Command, of the glory he'd sought. And he thought of the human governor's face, the pity in her eyes when she'd warned him. All ships, he said, his voice hollow. Stand down. Power down all weapons. Lower shields. The resistance died. One by one, the surviving Valorian vessels went dark, surrendering not to an enemy, but to a force of nature they'd been foolish enough to provoke. Admiral Chen nodded slowly. Wise choice. Your crews will be detained but unharmed. Your ships will be impounded. And you, Commander Thexrel, will be returned to your empire with a message. What message? Thexrel asked, already knowing he wouldn't like the answer. Chen's expression was carved from ice. That the age of bullying human civilians is over. That every colony, every outpost, every ship flying our flag is under the protection of the Terran Federation. And that protection, he gestured to the armada around him, has no limits and no delays. The view screen went dark. Thexrel slumped in his chair, staring at nothing. Around him, his crew worked in silent shock, going through the motions of surrender. They'd come to conquer a defenseless world. Instead, they'd discovered that humanity's mercy was more terrifying than any weapon, because mercy implied choice. And if humans could choose mercy while holding this much power, what would they choose if truly provoked? The human boarding parties arrived within the hour. They came in sleek dropships that barely registered on sensors until they were already docking. No fanfare, no threats, just cold, professional efficiency. Thexrel watched through the viewport as armored humans moved through his ship's corridors. They were methodical, precise, treating his crew with firm courtesy, but no cruelty. Injured Valorians were given medical attention. Those who resisted were subdued with non-lethal force. Within 30 minutes, every surviving ship in his fleet was secured. He sat in what had been his command chair, wrists bound with some kind of crystalline restraint that adjusted automatically to his physiology. A human soldier stood nearby, young, female, holding a weapon that looked almost decorative in its simplicity. But Thexrel had learned his lesson about underestimating human technology. "Commander Thexrel." A new voice. He looked up. A human officer approached, male, dark-skinned, with the bearing of someone accustomed to authority. And his uniform bore different insignia than the soldiers', intelligence, perhaps, or diplomatic corps. "I am Colonel Okonkwo, Terran Federation Intelligence," the human said, confirming Thexrel's guess. "I've been assigned to debrief you before your return to Valorian space." "Debrief," Thexrel repeated bitterly. "You mean interrogate." "I mean explain," Okonkwo corrected, pulling up a nearby seat. "Because what happened here today is going to echo across the galaxy, Commander, and your Empire needs to understand exactly what occurred and why." Thexrel's mandibles clicked in resignation. "You destroyed us in minutes. What more is there to understand? Everything." Okonkwo activated a holographic display. It showed the Kepler 442 system, the Valorian fleet, the human response. "Your Empire made several critical miscalculations. First, you assumed this colony was isolated." The hologram shifted, showing a network of human worlds connected by glowing lines. "This was never an isolated colony," Okonkwo continued. "Kepler 442 is one of 73 human settlements within our rapid response grid. Each one has quantum communication arrays linked directly to our Defense Fleet Command. The moment you entered the system, our military knew. The moment you issued your ultimatum, our response was already launching." Thexrel stared at the network. 73 worlds, all connected, all protected. The colony, it was bait. "No," Okonkwo said firmly. "It's a real colony, with real civilians living real lives. But it's also an early warning system. Every human world is. We don't leave our people undefended, Commander. Ever." The hologram changed again, and showing the human fleet's arrival. "Second miscalculation. You assumed our response time indicated proximity. It didn't. Admiral Chen's fleet was stationed 800 light-years away. They covered that distance in 47 minutes using quantum slip-space drives. We have 6 such fleets positioned strategically throughout our territory. 800 light-years, 47 minutes. The numbers still made Thexrel's head spin. "Third miscalculation," Okonkwo continued, his tone becoming harder. "You assumed we would negotiate when you threatened our civilians. We don't. Any hostile action against human non-combatants triggers immediate military response. No warnings, no diplomacy, just overwhelming force." "That's barbaric," Thexrel protested weakly. "That's survival," Okonkwo countered. "Our humanity's history is written in the blood of civilizations that learned too late the cost of weakness. We decided centuries ago that we would never be weak again, that we would never watch our children die because we weren't strong enough to protect them." The hologram showed another image. Human worlds, dozens of them, scarred by war. Ancient conflicts, perhaps, pre-spaceflight. But the devastation was clear. "We know what empires do to those they consider weak," Okonkwo said. Quietly. "We've been on the receiving end. We learned, we adapted, we built the capability to ensure no one would ever threaten our civilians without facing immediate consequences." Thexrel looked at the scarred worlds, at the network of protected colonies, at the 6 fleet positions marked across human space, and he understood, finally, on what he'd really encountered. Not an empire, not conquerors, survivors. A species so traumatized by their own history that they'd built an entire civilization around one principle: never again. "Your fourth and final miscalculation," Okonkwo said, "was assuming your empire's reputation would protect you. That 3,000 years of expansion meant something to us. It doesn't. We don't care how many worlds you've conquered. We don't care about your military tradition. The moment you threatened our people, you became a problem to be solved. The colonel stood, deactivating the hologram. This engagement is being broadcast across every major civilization in the sector. Your ships disabled, your fleet shattered, your forces surrendering without inflicting a single casualty on ours. By the time you return to Valorian space, Commander, every species in the galaxy will know what happened here. Thexrel felt the weight of those words. The political implications alone would shatter the Empire's prestige. But more than that, you're warning them, he said slowly. Not just us. Everyone. Yes, Okonkwo confirmed. We're sending a very clear message. Humanity is off limits. Our civilians are off limits. Our colonies are off limits. Any species that doesn't understand this will learn the same lesson you just did. And if the Empire retaliates, Thexrel asked, if we come back with more ships, then we destroy them too, Okonkwo said simply, and we keep destroying them until you understand. Commander, we currently have 512 ships in this system. We have 12,000 more in reserve. We can have them here in under an hour. Can your Empire say the same? 12,000 ships, each one with technology that made Valorian vessels look like antiques. Each one capable of crossing vast distances in minutes. Each one ready to respond to any threat against human civilians. Thexrel had no answer, because the answer was obvious. The Empire had 15,000 vessels total, spread across 3,000 years of conquest. And they couldn't move them anywhere near as fast as humans could. Your people will be returned unharmed, Okonkwo continued. Your ships will be impounded and studied. You will be given medical care, food, shelter, and transport home. Because despite what you think of us, Commander, we're not monsters. We're not conquerors. We're protectors. He headed toward the door, then paused. One more thing. The colony you tried to take. Governor Chen is the Admiral's daughter. She volunteered for this assignment specifically because she knew frontier worlds would be tested. She knew empires like yours would see an agricultural settlement and think, easy target. And she knew her father would come if anything happened. Thexrel's blood went cold. The calm woman on the view screen, the pity in her eyes. She'd known. She'd known exactly what would happen if he didn't retreat. She gave you every chance to leave, Okonkwo said softly. Remember that, Commander, when you make your report, when your empire decides what to do next. Remember that we gave you every chance to walk away. The colonel left. Thexrel sat alone in the ruins of his command, staring at the viewport. Outside, the human fleet maintained its perfect formation, weapons still charged, shields still active. Waiting, watching, protecting, and somewhere on the planet below, 400,000 human civilians went about their lives, farming and building and living, secure in the knowledge that if anyone threatened them, help would come immediately. 3 days later, Thexrel stood on the bridge of a human transport vessel, watching Valorian space approach through the viewport. His crew had been divided among several ships, all treated well, all unharmed, all bearing the psychological scars of their defeat. Admiral Chen stood beside him. The human had barely spoken during the journey, content to let Thexrel process what had happened. Now, as they neared the border, Chen finally broke the silence. "Your High Command is waiting for you," the Admiral said. "We've transmitted full tactical data of the engagement. They know what happened." "They'll call it a trick," Thexrel said hollowly. "A deception. They'll say we were ambushed, that we didn't fight properly. Perhaps, Chen agreed, but they'll also see the recordings. They'll see their weapons failing. They'll see our response time. They'll see what we're capable of. He turned to face Thexral directly. And they'll have to decide, is pride worth extinction? You would destroy the entire empire. If you forced us to, Chen said without hesitation. But we'd rather not. Humanity has no interest in conquest, Commander. We have enough worlds, enough resources, enough territory. We just want to live in peace. But we will not sacrifice our people's safety for that peace. Thexral looked at the human admiral, this calm, gray-haired officer who commanded enough firepower to burn civilizations. Bin, your daughter, on the colony. You put her in danger deliberately. I put her where she wanted to be, Chen corrected. My daughter is a civilian administrator, not a soldier, but she's also her father's daughter. She understands that sometimes you have to stand in the gap to be the warning others need. His expression softened slightly. And she was never in real danger. The moment your fleet entered the system, I knew. The moment you issued your ultimatum, I was already on my way. 47 minutes, Thexral whispered. 47 minutes, Chen confirmed. Remember that number, Commander. Share it with your high command. Tell them that's how long they have between threatening a human colony and facing the consequences. The transport slowed as it approached the Valorian border station. Ahi Thexral could see to his Empire's ships positioning themselves. Nervous, weapons charged but not aimed. They'd seen the tactical data. They knew better than to provoke another demonstration. There's one more thing you need to understand, Chen said as the docking procedures began. What you faced at Kepler 442 was a rapid response fleet. Defensive forces designed to protect our colonies and deter aggression. That was us being restrained. Thexral turned slowly. Restrained? We have other fleets, Commander. Offensive fleets. Fleets designed not to defend, but to destroy. Fleets we haven't deployed in 60 years because we've never needed to. Chen's eyes were hard as diamonds. You saw what we do to those who threaten our civilians. Oh, you don't want to see what we do to those who actually harm them. The implications settled over Thexral like a shroud. The fleet that had dismantled his armada in 3 minutes was the gentle option. Go home, Chen said. Tell your empire what you learned here. Tell them that humanity's patience has limits. Tell them that our response time has none. Tell them that every colony, every ship, every human in the galaxy is under our protection. The docking clamps engaged. The airlock cycled. Beyond it, Valorian officers waited to receive their defeated commander. And tell them, Chen added quietly, that we chose mercy today. We chose to disable rather than destroy. We chose to return your people rather than taking prisoners. We chose to give the Empire a chance to learn. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Make sure they understand that was a choice. And make sure they never force us to choose differently. Thexral nodded slowly. There were no words left. No arguments. No pride. The airlock opened. As Thexral walked toward his people, toward his empire, toward the impossible task of explaining what he'd witnessed, he heard Admiral Chen's final words behind him. Safe travels, Commander. I hope we never meet again. The airlock sealed. The report reached the Valorian High Command within hours. The tactical data was analyzed. The quantum drive signatures were studied. The response time was calculated and recalculated. And across Valorian space, in council chambers and fleet headquarters and military academies, a new understanding took hold. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not some primitive species to be conquered and absorbed. Humanity was the line that could not be crossed. Within a week, the Empire's expansion directives were quietly revised. Border territories were pulled back from human space. Trade negotiations were opened. Diplomatic channels that had been dismissive became respectful. The Valorian Empire, 3,000 years old, masters of conventional warfare, learned what dozens of other species would learn in the years to come. You could fight humans. You could even kill humans. But if you touched their civilians, their colonies, their children, if you made humanity choose between peace and protection, they would cross any distance, deploy any force, use any weapon to keep their people safe. And they would do it in 47 minutes. On Kepler 442, and Governor Chen stood in her office watching the sunset over fields of golden wheat. Her father's fleet had departed hours ago, slipping back through quantum space to their station 800 light-years away. The colony was safe. Her people were safe. And across the galaxy, a message had been sent that would echo for generations. Humanity protects its own, always, immediately. What do you think about this clash between alien arrogance and human power? Share your thoughts below. And remember to like and subscribe for more HFY stories.